Hey guys, it's me Adalynn. Today I'm going to be reading Chapter 9, I Scoop Poop, starting on page 149. I'm also starting timestamps, so go check that out in the description if you want. Alright, let's read. I lost hope when I saw the horse's teeth. As I got closer to the fence, I held my shirt over my nose to block the smell. One stallion waded through the muck and whined angrily at me. He bared his teeth, which were pointed like a bear's. I tried to talk in my mind. I can do that with most horses. Hi, I told him. I'm going to clean your stables. Won't that be great? Yes, the horse said. Come inside. Eat you. Tasty half-blood. But I'm Poseidon's son, I protested. He created horses? Usually this gets me VIP treatment in the equestrian world, but not this time. Yes, the horse agreed enthusiastically. Poseidon can come in, too. We'll eat both seafood. Seafood? The other horses chimed in as they waded through the field. Flies were buzzing everywhere, and the heat of the day didn't make the smell any better. I'd had some idea that I could do this challenge because I remember how Hercules had done it. He channeled a river into the stables and cleaned them out that way. I figured I could maybe control the water, but if I couldn't get close to the horses without getting eaten, that was a problem. And the river was downhill from the stables, a lot farther away than I realized, almost half a mile. The problem of the poop looked a lot bigger up close. I picked up a rusted shovel and experimentally scooped some away from the fence line. Great. Only 4 billion shovelfuls to go. The sun was already sinking. I had a few hours at best. I decided the river was my only hope. At least it would be easier to think at the riverside than it was here. I set off downhill. When I got to the river, I found a girl waiting for me. She was wearing jeans and a green t-shirt, and her long brown hair was braided with river grass. She had a stern look on her face. Her arms were crossed. Oh, no, you don't, she said. I stared at her. Are you a naiad? She rolled her eyes. Of course, but you speak English, and you're out of the water. What, you don't think we can act human if we want to? I never thought about it. I kind of felt stupid, though, because I'd seen plenty of naiads at camp, and they never done much more than giggle and wave at me from the bottom of the canoe lake. Look, I said. I just came to ask. I know who you are, she said, and I know what you want. And the answer is no. I'm not going to have my river used again to clean that filthy stable. But, oh, save it, sea boy. You ocean god types always think you're so much more important than some little river, don't you? Well, let me tell you this. This night is not going to be pushed around just because your daddy is Poseidon. This is freshwater territory, mister. The last guy who asked me this favor, oh, he was way better looking than you. By the way, he convinced me, and that was the worst mistake I've ever made. Do you have any idea what all those horse manure does to my ecosystem? Do I look like a sewage treatment plant to you? My fish will die. I'll never get the muck out of my plants, and I'll be sick for years. No, thank you. The way she talked reminded me of my mortal friend, Rachel Elizabeth Dare. Kind of like she was punching me with words. I couldn't blame the naiad. Now that I thought about it, I'd been pretty mad if somebody dumped 4 million pounds of manure in my home. But still. My friends are in danger, I told her. Well, that's too bad. But it's not my problem. And you're not going to ruin my river. She looked like she was ready for a fight. Her fists were balled, but I thought I heard a little quiver in her voice. Suddenly, I realized that despite her angry attitude, she was afraid of me. She probably thought I was going to fight her for control of the river, and she was worried she would lose. That thought made me sad. I felt like a bully, a son of Poseidon throwing his weight around. I sat down on a tree stump. Okay, you win. The naiad looked surprised. Really? I'm not going to fight you. It's your river. She relaxed her shoulders. Oh, good. I mean, good thing for you. But my friends and I are going to get sold to the Titans if I don't clean those stables by sunset. And I don't know how. The river gurgled along cheerfully. A snake slid through the water and ducked its head under. Finally, the naiad sighed. I'll tell you a secret, son of the sea god. Scoop up some dirt. What? You heard me. I crouched down and scooped up a handful of Texas dirt. It was dry and black and spotted with tiny clumps of white rock. No, something besides rock. Those are shells, the naiad said. Petrified seashells. Millions of years ago, even before the time of the gods, when only Gaia and Uranus reigned, this land was underwater. It was part of the sea. Suddenly, I saw what she meant. These were little pieces of ancient sea urchins in my hand, mollusk shells. Even the limestone rocks had impressions of seashells embedded in them. Okay, I said. What good does that do to me? You're not so different from me, demigod. Even when I'm out of the water is within me. It is my life source. She stepped back, put her feet in the river, and smiled. I hope you find a way to rescue your friends. And with that, she turned to liquid and melted into the river. The sun was touching the hills when I got back to the stables. Somebody must have come by and fed the horses because they were tearing into huge animal carcasses. I couldn't tell what kind of animal, and I didn't really want to know. If it was possible for the stables to get more disgusting, 50 horses tearing into raw meat did it. Seafood, one thought when he saw me. Come in, we're still hungry. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't use the river, and the fact that this place had been underwater a million years ago didn't exactly help me now. I looked at the little calcified seashell in my palm, then at the huge mound of dung. Frustrated, I threw the shell into the poop. I was about to turn my back on the horses when I heard a sound, like a balloon with a leak. I looked down when I had thrown the shell. A tiny spout of water was shooting out of the muck. No way, I muttered. Instantly, I stepped toward the fence. Get bigger, I told the water spout. Spoosh! Water shot 3 feet into the air and kept bubbling. It was impossible, but there it was. A couple of horses came over to check it out. One put his mouth to the spring and recoiled. Yuck, he said. Salty. It was seawater in the middle of a Texas ranch. I scooped up another handful of dirt and picked out the shell fossils. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I ran around the length of the stable throwing shells into the dung piles. Everywhere a shell hit, a saltwater spring erupted. Stop! The horses cried. Meat is good. Bats are bad. Then I noticed the water wasn't running out of the stables or flowing downhill like water normally would. It simply bubbled around each spring and sank into the ground, taking the dung with it. The horse poop dissolved into the seawater, leaving regular old wet dirt. More! I yelled. There was a tugging sensation in my gut, and the water spouts exploded like the world's largest car wash. Salt water shot 20 feet into the air. The horses went crazy, running back and forth as the geysers sprayed them from all directions. Mountains of poop began to melt like ice. The tugging sensation became more intense, painful even, but there was something exhilarating about seeing all the salt water. I had made this. I had brought the ocean to this hillside. Stop, Lord, a horse cried. Stop, please. Water was sloshing everywhere now. The horses were drenched, and some were panicking and slipping into the mud. The poop was completely gone. Tons of it just dissolved into the earth, and the water was now starting to pool, trickling out of the stable, making 100 little streams down toward the river. Stop, I told the water. Nothing happened. The pain in my gut was building. If I didn't shut off the geyser soon, the salt water would run into the river and poison the fish and plants. Stop! I concentrated all my might on shutting off the force of the sea. Suddenly, the geyser shut down. I collapsed to my knees, exhausted. In front of me was a shiny, clean horse stable, a field of wet, salty mud, and 50 horses that had been scored so thoroughly their coats gleamed. Even the meat scraps between their teeth had been washed out. We won't eat you, the horses wailed. Please, Lord, no more salty bats. On one condition, I said. You only eat the food your handlers give you from now on, not people, or I'll be back with more seashells. The horses whined and made me a whole lot of promises that they would be good flesh-eating horses from now on. But I didn't stick around to chat. The sun was going down. I turned and ran full speed toward the ranch house. I smelled barbecue before I reached the house, and that made me madder than ever, because I really love barbecue. The deck was set up for a party. Streamers and balloons decorated the railing. Jaron was flipping burgers on a huge barbecue cooker made from an oil drum. Iraton lounged at a picnic table, picking his fingernails with a knife. The two-headed dog sniffed the ribs and burgers that were frying on the grill. And then I saw my friends, Tyson, Grover, Annabeth, and Nico, all tossed in a corner, tied up like rodeo animals with their ankles and wrists roped together and their mouths gagged. Let them go, I yelled, still out of breath from running up the steps. I cleaned the stables. Garen turned. He wore an apron on each chest, with one word on each. So together they spelled out, Kiss the Chef. Did you know now? How'd you manage it? I was pretty impatient, but I told him. He nodded appreciatively. Very ingenious. It would have been better if you poisoned that pesky naiad, but no matter. Let my friends go, I said. We had a deal. I've been thinking about that. The problem is, if I let them go, I don't get paid. You promised! Garen made a noise. But did you make me swear on the rubber sticks? No, you didn't. So it's not binding. When you're conducting business, Sonny, you should always get a binding oath. I drew my sword. Orthos growled. One head leaned down next to Grover's ear and bared its fangs. Yurton, Garen said. The boy is starting to annoy me. Kill him. Yurton studied me. I didn't like my odds against him in that huge club. Kill him yourself, Yurton said. Garen raised his eyebrows. Excuse me? You heard me, Garreton grumbled. You keep sending me out to do your dirty work. You pick fights for no good reason, and I'm tired of dying for you. You want to fight the kid? Do it yourself. It was like the most on Ares-like thing I've ever heard a son of Ares say. Garen threw down his spatula. You dare defy me? I should fire you right now. And who'd take care of your cattle? Orthrus, heel. The dog immediately stopped growling at Grover and came to sit by the cowherd's feet. Fine, Garen snarled. I'll deal with you later, after the boy is dead. He picked up 2 carving knives and threw them at me. I deflected one with my sword. The other impaled itself on the picnic table an inch from Garreton's hand. I went on the attack. Garen parried my first strike with a pair of red-hot tongs and lunged at my face with a barbecue fork. I got inside his next thrust and stabbed him right through the middle chest. Ah! He crumpled to his knees. I waited for him to disintegrate the way monsters usually do, but instead he just grimaced and began to stand up. The wounds in his chef's apron started to heal. Nice try, Sonny, he said. The thing is, I have 3 hearts. The perfect backup system. He tipped over the barbecue and coils spilled everywhere. One landed next to Annabeth's face, and she let out a muffled scream. Tyson strained against his bonds, but even his strength wasn't even enough to break them. I had to end this fight before my friends got hurt. I jabbed Jaren in his left chest, but he only laughed. I stuck him in the right stomach. No good. I might as well have been sticking a sword in a teddy bear for all the reaction he showed. 3 hearts. The perfect backup system. Stabbing one at a time was no good. I ran into the house. Coward, he cried. Come back and die right. The living room walls were decorated with a bunch of gruesome hunting trophies. Stuffed deer and dragging heads, a gun case, a sword display, and a bow with a quiver. Garen threw his barbecue fork and it thudded into the wall right next to my head. He drew 2 swords from the wall display. Your head's gonna go right there, Jackson, next to the grizzly bear. I had a crazy idea. I dropped Riptide and grabbed the bow off the wall. I was the worst archery shot in the world. I couldn't hit the targets at camp, much less a bull's eye. But I had no choice. I couldn't win this fight with the sword. I prayed to Artemis and Apollo, the twin archers, hoping they might take pity on me for once. Please, guys, just 1 shot, please. I notched it an arrow. Garen laughed. You fool! 1 arrow's no better than 1 sword. He raised his swords and charged. I dove sideways before he could turn and shot my arrow into the thigh of the right chest. I heard thump, 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 as the arrow passed clean through each of his chests and flew out his left side, embedding itself in the forehead of the grizzly bear trophy. Garen dropped his swords, and he turned and stared at me. You can't shoot. They told me you couldn't. His face turned a sickly shade of green. He collapsed to his knees and began crumbling into sand until all that was left were 3 cooking aprons and an oversized pair of cowboy boots. I got my friends untied. Yurton did try to stop me. Then I stalked up to the barbecue and threw the food into the flames as a burnt offering for Artemis and Apollo. Thanks, guys, I said. I owe you one. The sky thundered in the distance, so I figured maybe the burgers smelled okay. Yay for Percy, Tyson said. Can we tie up this cowherd now? Nico asked. Yeah, Grover agreed, and that dog almost killed me. I looked at Yurton, who still was sitting relaxed at the picnic table. Orthrus had both his heads on the cowherd's knees. How long will it take Garen to reform? I asked him. Garen shrugged. 100 years? He's not one of those fast reformers. Thank the gods. You've done me a favor. You said you died for him before, I remembered. How? I worked for that creep for thousands of years. Started as a regular half-blood, but I chose immortality when my dad offered it. Worst mistake I ever made. Now I'm stuck here at this ranch. I can't leave. I can't quit. I just tend the cows and fight Garen's fights. We're kind of tied together. Maybe you can change things, I said. Yurton narrowed his eyes. How? Be nice to the animals. Take care of them. Stop selling them for food and stop dealing with the Titans. Yurton thought about that. That'll be all right. Get the animals on your side and they'll help you. Once Garen gets back, maybe he'll be working for you this time. Yurton grinned. Now that I could live with. You won't try to stop us leaving? Shoot, no. Annabeth rubbed her bruised wrists. She still looking at Yurton suspiciously. Your boss said that somebody paid for our safe passage. Who? The cowherd shrugged. Maybe he was just saying that to fool you. What about the Titans? I asked. Did you iris message them about Nico yet? Nope. Karen was waiting until after the barbecue. They don't know anything about him. Nico was glaring at me. I wasn't sure what to do about him. I doubt he would agree to come with us. On the other hand, I couldn't just let him roam around on his own. You could stay here until we're done with our quest, I told him. It would be safe. Safe? Nico said. What do you care if I'm safe? You got my sister killed. Nico, Enid said. That wasn't Percy's fault. And Garen wasn't lying about Kronos wanting to capture you. If he knew who you were, he'd do anything to get you on his side. I'm not on anyone's side, and I'm not afraid. You should be, Enid said. Your sister wouldn't want... If you cared about my sister, you would help me bring her back. A soul for a soul, I said. Yes, but if you didn't want my soul, I'm not explaining anything to you. He blinked back his tears back out of his eyes. And I will bring her back. Bianca wouldn't want to be brought back, I said. Not like that. You don't know her, he shouted. How do you know what she wants? I stared at the flames in the barbecue pit. I thought about the line in Annabeth's prophecy. You shall rise or fall by the Ghost King's hand. That had to be Minos. And I had to convince Nico not to listen to him. Let's ask Bianca. The sky seemed to grow darker all of a sudden. I've tried, Nico said miserably. She won't answer. Try again. I've got a feeling she'll answer with me here. Why would she? Because she's been sending me iris messages, I said, suddenly sure of it. She's been trying to warn me what you're up to so I can protect you. Nico shook his head. That's impossible. One way to find out. You said you're not afraid. I turned to Yuriton. We're going to need a pit, like a grave, and food and drinks. Percy, Annabeth warned. I don't think this is good. All right, Nico said. I'll try. Yuriton scratched his beard. There's a whole dugout back for a septic tank. We could use that. Cyclops boy, fetch me ice pack from the chest. I hope the dead like root beer. So that was the end of chapter 9, I Scoop Poop. Thank you guys so much for listening along. And remember to go down in the description if you want to see the timestamps. Bye, guys.